The communications regulator Icasa upholding the SABC's decision to ban the Democratic Alliance's election ad. The party's Gauteng Premier candidate Mmusi Maimane now joins us on Newsnight. What is your response to this?
Good evening, Jeremy, and I'm completely disappointed with this ruling. We feel that the reasons given for it are in some of the worst I've ever heard. And more critically, if you want to argue that the advert incites violence, well, produce the evidence for it. I came actually this afternoon from the family of the Babu Singh. And there, a young South African, in fact, was shot by the police. I do an injustice to them if I don't stand up today in an election year and say, this is what happened to the life of a young South African. This is, in my view, the height of censorship and ultimately a restriction of my right to freedom of speech.
The evidence, if you look at Icasa, and again, I've just had a cursory look at this, they seem to be concerned and upholding the concern because there's a photo or an image of a police officer firing rubber bullets. Is that the offending bit of footage, do you think?
It is,
yeah.
and what is
there we
quite
go.
worrying,
we're having a look at it now. Yeah.
Is in fact that when the Marikana murders took place, those images were all over our TVs. When the Andries Tatana murder took place, those images were on our TV. So to now suddenly argue that as an output of that particular footage, there's going to be a rise against police, particularly in an election year, is absurd at best, and in fact an insult to the victims who die at the hands of police.
The regulator itself, has it given you formal reasons for this decision?
That is also secondary. It doesn't even, their reasons for their decisions aren't consistent with the actual regulations that are on the table.
Can you illustrate that for me?
So, for example, the rulings that are put in place lay out particularly when does an advert incite violence. And at least the regulator should have studied to say, as a result of the advert being there, this is the evidence in place. None of that was studied. And worst of all, when we attended and made our submissions, we requested of the regulator to say, can we show footage that indicates what's been on television for South Africans, and that opportunity was denied. So I think, to me, is the co-option of state institutions and ultimately a level of censorship that I think is unhelpful to our democracy.
Is it your contention then that there was pressure put on Icasa to uphold this?
We will certainly take the matter to whatever level we can. It is, and I still hold the view that this decision must be taken under review, and we'll certainly take it to the High Court and see what happens from their end. But
is that your next plan of action?
Without fail, because we believe that here there's an injustice. There's a limitation of freedom of speech during an election. We can't accept that, because freedom of speech doesn't mean that we must say things that we agree with. In fact, freedom of speech must be exercised right at the point where we say, when a truth is put on TV, that police are taking South Africans, that in fact we must put that truth. And without fail, we'll be taking this matter to the High Court.
The public broadcaster, and for that matter Icasa, might be happy if you removed what they term the offending part of the advert. Well, you're not going to do that, are you?
We're certainly not. It's editorial pressure, and if the SABC are given the right to edit what adverts get shown, particularly political messaging, then we are on a slippery slope.
What sort of tone does this set for the election, just less than 2 weeks away now?
Well, I think it's a response that shows the fact that here in these elections, we are certainly we are showing that in Gauteng the ANC is below 50%. It puts a pressure to say, when the ANC sees that this election could be lost, that there's a co-option of state institutions progressively. And it's a tone that I think is undemocratic. You can't, and my legitimate concern here is that when we go forward in these elections, we must always make sure that the rules are fair and apply to everybody, and that without fail, that political contestation must give South Africans the right to choose.
Just in conclusion, you will concede, though, that this furor is also working to your advantage in terms of the public relations value that you're getting out of this. I mean, if this decision hadn't been made today, you wouldn't be sitting in front of me tonight.
No, and Jeremy, I wish in some ways that the advert in itself will be allowed to be flighted on air. And I accept the fact that in this instance, now we're facing court bills. I don't like going to court. I don't like having to take decisions under review. I don't like any of that. All I accept is the fact that I must contest fairly. And in this instance, if the culture has then continued, it invents a different problem for us. As for the fact that the public have come on our favor and are in supportive of that, shows the potency of the advert, and it shows the fact that it poses a real threat to the ANC.
All right, thank you very much for joining us from the Democratic Alliance, Mmusi Maimane.
Know more. eNCA.com